A very good morning to all of you once again. We are going to begin this special lecture organized by Amrita International Center for Spiritual Studies. The program shall begin now with Vaidika Mangalacharanam as well as Laukika Mangalacharanam followed by it. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Yo ma agne bhaginagum santamatha bhaganchikirishati abhagamagne tankuru mamagne bhaginankuru Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I now call upon my esteemed colleague, Ms. Yogita Chhatri, to present a Laukika Mangalacharanam.
शुक्लां ब्रह्मविचारसारपरमाम् आद्यां जगद्व्यापिनीं वीणापुस्तकधारिणीम् अभयदां जाड्यान्धकारापहां हस्ते स्फाटिकमालिकां विदधतीं पद्मासने संस्थितां वन्दे तां परमेश्वरीं भगवतीं बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम्.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Mahima Bhatta is a famous author who belonged to Kashmir, the country of Kashmir. And in his work, Vidyapeetham, in the beginning, he praises Anandavardhana, even though in the entire work he is going to criticize him. But in the beginning of that work, he praises Anandavardhana, and he says that this is the greatest moment of any scholar's life, that yan mahatam samstava eva gauravaya. The very fact that we get an opportunity to speak about once in a millennium scholar like Anandavardhana itself is the greatest moment of my life, said Mahima Bhatta in his Vidyapeetham. And I am repeating that without any exaggeration. The person sitting here, Professor R.N. Iyengar, I'm going to read a brief introduction provided by him. Even though we can conduct a lecture only discussing about his achievements, his contributions to our country, but I'm going to keep it very brief. Professor R.N. Iyengar, B.E., MSc in Engineering and PhD, is renowned for his contributions to earthquake engineering, random vibrations, mathematical modeling, structural dynamics, and nonlinear systems. As faculty at the Indian Institute of Science, IISc, from 1969 till his retirement in 2005, as KSIDC Chair Professor in Civil Engineering, Professor R.N. Iyengar has published 200 research papers, 40 technical reports, 20 general articles, and has authored 5 books. He is Fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering, Indian Academy of Science, National Academy of Science, and the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, Germany. He was the Distinguished Schmidt Chair Professor at the Florida Atlantic University, USA in 1995. He was the director of CSIR CBRI from 1994 to 2000. Raja Ramanna Fellow of Department of Atomic Energy from 2005 to 2010. He was instrumental in establishing the UL JAIN Fire Lab at the JAIN University, Bangalore. He continues at the JAIN University as Distinguished Professor and Emeritus Professor and the Director of the Center for Ancient History and Culture, which is recognized by Ministry of Education as Center for Indian Knowledge Systems. He has developed combining Indic knowledge traditions with modern methods a new line of study of ancient Indian heritage. His findings on comets, eclipses, earthquakes, ancient geography, effect of precision, and the pole star Dhruva in Vedic literature, concept of probability in classical music have attracted worldwide attention. He brought out the Parashara Tantra, an ancient Sanskrit treatise on astronomy and natural sciences with text, translation, and notes in 2013. Recently, he has edited Narada Shilpam, a medieval Sanskrit text on architectural civil engineering with introduction, translation, figures, and notes. He is presently critically editing Vriddha Gargiya Jyotisha, an ancient Sanskrit text on astral sciences from about 10 unpublished manuscripts. He is the recipient of the Vishweshwaraya Award for Senior Scientists of Government of Karnataka in 1995 and the Sen Memorial Lecture Award from IIT Kharagpur 1996. Government of India awarded him the Technology Day Award 2001 for the pollution control technology in brick kilns of Central Building Research Institute. He was honored in 2013 with the Vaastuvidya Award for his significant contributions to structural and mechanical sciences and technology. He was honored in 2015 by the Vidyapeetham of Mysore with the Asthana Vidwan Award for his contributions to scientific studies in Sanskrit literature. He was recently awarded Lifetime Honorary Fellowship by the Council of Vibration Scientists in 2021, and the list goes on. We are immensely blessed to have such a world-renowned scholar amongst us to give us a talk on architectural civil engineering in Vaastuvidya text of Narada. So without further ado, I now call upon our center coordinator, Dr. Manish Rajan Valvekarji, to present Professor R.N. Iyengar with a flower bouquet and welcome him officially.
ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ನಮಗೆ ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಬೇಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ವೈ ವಾಟ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್? ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾನ್, ಬಟ್ ಇಫ್ ದಟ್ ಅಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ದಿ ಅದರ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಓಕೆ. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಎ ಲಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಟ್.
Okay, this is where
ಬ್ಯಾಗ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ? ಓಕೆ, ಗಿವ್ ಮಿ ದಟ್ ಬ್ಯಾಗ್.
This is where my words end and the professor's words begin.
I think all of you will be able to see, I think, okay. So thank you, Mr. Vishwanath, and also Dr. Valvekar, for your kind introduction and welcome. I'm happy to be here in this institution, founded by a great personality, Amma Amrita. I met her about 3 years back, and I'm happy to be here giving a talk at her institution. My intention in this talk is to introduce that there is a Sanskrit text in our country where Sanskrit texts are supposed to be generally taken to be religious, philosophical, whereas there is one which talks more about engineering, or what we would call today civil engineering. And that is something which is surprising and interesting. And in the present time, when the National Education Plan has been introduced and Indian knowledge systems are supposed to be part and parcel of higher education in this country, An introduction to such a book, I'm sure, would be of interest to our youngsters here, even though they may not be civil engineers. After all, it's an intellectual tradition, whether it is electrical engineering or mechanical or computer science, it is going to be same. And we can be proud of the culture that we are having, a historical culture about this. Well, all of us are aware of Vastu. Vastu is such a common word nowadays, even advertised in the newspapers. The Vastu consultants are there. But this book is not about that. And you are all aware of the great temples of, Tanjavur, of Madurai, even Belur, Halabid, which are all architectural wonders. There is also an engineering involved in these temples. Now, when you think of temples, you may question, did we not have 1,000 years back ordinary buildings for human beings to be living, for us to? How were they? If it is a great culture, you cannot simply do with temples. You need other things also. For example, you need water supply systems, you need roads, you need transportation systems, you need trade, and for trade you need different kinds of infrastructure, ports and harbors. And to, as you have seen through our history, there have been invasions, there have been fights and these things. So there have been forts. Forts at least are existing even today, and you would know them. If you think of palaces, they are somewhat later in time. That is, from the Rajasthan palace or the Mysore palace is only about 150 years old. And you may question, when Mahabharata and Ramayana talks of palaces, how did they build the palaces? What was their structure? How did they have it? The present available texts on Vastu, like Mayamata, Manasara, Samarangana Sutradhara, they are large texts, but they don't touch upon these things at all in any detail. Because they were written after the culture was already very well developed. It is like telling there is an apartment, a 20-story building. You don't try to describe it because the apartments are there, all there standing. But before such development, somebody should have thought about these things. Now this goes to that period. So a very brief two-line introduction. Vastu and Shilpa. Vastu can be thought of as engineering. Shilpa something like as architecture. Now Vastu is from Vastu. Vastu means substance, So in our culture we have Prithvi, Up, Tejas, Vayu and Akasha. As an engineer, a building material you have to develop, there out of earth, water, fire, you have to burn something, lime burning and all that, air and space. Space is needed because architecture is about dividing the space suitably for human occupation. You can say Shilpa is an artistic creation, a replication of nature. And this concept is very old. It comes from the Vedic concept, Deva Shilpani Etesham Va, it goes like the mantra in Aitareya Brahmana. The cosmologically created things, they are replicated in ground in small scale, like in a small elephant or so. That is what is called Shilpa, at least as per that. Now, since architecture is about beauty, aesthetics, and you have already some idea about it, you also have computer architecture. That computer architecture is going to be for some other purpose. It's not for civil engineering or infrastructural architecture, but the concept is similar. You have to organize in a particular way so that the networking happens well, and all the actions which are there, the human beings have to do, will be carried out in a most efficient manner. Like in a house you build, where you have to have the veranda, where you have to have the sleeping bedroom, where is going to be the kitchen, where is going to be the bathroom. These are all the arrangements which go into that. And this text, which is already 1500 years old, I will come to the dating of this text after some time, maybe towards the end. And civil engineering, even today when it is taught in our classes, it is about reconnaissance, site selection, it's about roads, bridges, water resources, a very important thing. You can't have a city without water resources. Building materials, what kind of building materials you use? Today you use more of steel, concrete, cement and all that. But in the olden days they had different building materials. Foundation, construction, and public infrastructure, like where are the civic communities? It is not simply a temple. Where is going to be the law court? How should be the law courts have? The king has to come and sit there. How is he going to do that? These are the things. And if there has to be an elephant stable, there has to be a horse stable, how it has to be constructed? What are the cultural artifacts which go into these things? That is the socio-political interaction among these things. Today, of course, these have all changed because we are a democratic country. The social political thing is going to be on the Independence Day, the flag hoisting is done, or there is going to be a Republic Day in Delhi, something is done, or the parade grounds. But in the olden times, the kings had different things. And that's all comes up in this. We know that they definitely had this, but we don't have evidence or reference to that. But this text has reference to these things. And that is how I was attracted to this book. Traditionally it is said there are 18 important architects, or whom you call Vastu Shastra, who knew Vastu Shastra. Like today you may talk of Vishwa as a great engineer or some other persons. They had such names even 1000 or 2000 years back. They are listed as Bhrigu, Atri, Vasishta, Vishwakarma, Maya, Narada, etc. Garga. There are 18 such. Vishwakarma, of course, is a very common name. All of you would have heard. And we have the community of the Vishwakarmas also, who have maintained this tradition of construction, architecture in a wonderful way. Even to this day they have maintained. So Vishwakarma was the originator of that system, is what he said. Maya also you would have heard. Maya Mata is a very well known book. Kashyapa Shilpa is also known. Kashyapa Shilpa is a book which is prescribed in Mahabalipuram in the Tamil Nadu schools of the sculptors to study this, because there is a Tamil version also is available for this, already done about 300 years back from Sanskrit translated into Tamil. Whereas the work of Narada and Garga are not known, but we have unearthed the manuscripts of both of these. That is what I want to say a few things here. When I was in the Building Research Institute, a student from IIT Delhi, he came to me and he gave me a manuscript. And he wanted to know, it was a Sanskrit manuscript from Baroda University. It was titled Narada Shilpam. And he asked me, sir, this is supposed to have a chapter on bridges. Can you please tell me where it is and what it says about bridges? Now I went through this, and it was not about bridges. It did not have to be, when I told him, he was a little bit disappointed. But it was called Pranali Setu. I will come to that in a minute. Pranali generally in Sanskrit would mean a pipe or an opening. Setu is generally translated as, even in Kannada, Setuve, that is a bridge. But the bridge need not be a modern bridge like a railway bridge or an arch bridge or a road bridge, you know. It may be even something with which you can cross and go, a river. Like the Ramasetu, which is supposed to be only on some shoals, that is an elevated land on which some more stones were kept and people crossed over. That is not a bridge like a railway bridge also. So we should be careful about these things. It did have, and that was a remarkable chapter because it says how check dams can be constructed, water resources can be constructed. Historically very important, because the only book on water resources in this country, about the history of water resources available, is by one person, Mate from Pune, and he also says in the Shilpa books there is nothing on how to construct even a well. Forget about water resources, lakes and dams. But we know there are lakes and dams in this country, but how did they do the step wells and these things? There should have been some technology or something which is interesting, which people would have left as a record. But this has a chapter on that. So this is how I was attracted to this, and I went through the manuscripts of this, and there are 3 manuscripts which are available from, which were copied from palm leaf manuscripts onto paper in 1930, and I collected these 3 manuscripts, and these manuscripts look like this, written on paper now. And from these 3 manuscripts, we wanted to edit, and this book was edited. This is the Narada Shilpa Shastra book, which is which was published in 2018, and no, this is the book. 2 Sanskritists helped me in this, Kannan and Vakankar, and I'm going to briefly show you what this book contains. That's what I'm going to do in this. And this can easily be adopted as a book even today, if you want to know more about ancient things, because it is structured as though it is a modern engineering subject, because it is only natural. The book, it's a foreword, an introduction. I have written this introduction. There is a summary, then the original Sanskrit text, translation of all the chapters following the text. But this is a technical translation. This is not a dictionary translation. Dictionary translation of Sanskrit would be extremely misleading, because the same word has 10 meanings. Which meaning you have to take, you have to see that. Notes about the engineering aspects, then sketches and drawings. That's an important thing. No engineering is complete without drawings, because you have to transmit to the other people. So this is a very important question all engineers in this country have to wonder about. There are great buildings, great temples in this country. They did that without any models, without any drawings? No. There were drawings, there were models, they have not been preserved. The drawings for Konark temple are available, which I have procured after considerable effort. Those drawings are on palm leaves. They are scale drawings on palm leaves, not on drawing paper. Today, of course, you do it in AutoCAD. You don't need even the drawing paper and the T-square and all that, which as a student I used. Today, nobody uses that. But they did it on palm leaf in Orissa. I don't think I will have time to show that, but this book gives information with which you can construct drawings. I will show you those drawings also. Now the contents, briefly, the contents will give you an idea of what the book contains. They can be divided into 3 groups: general, roads, water resources and town planning. This is the largest thing, lesson 1 to 58. There are totally 83 lessons, and 1 to 58 is about this. The second one, 59 to 71, about 11, is about residences, palaces, furniture, design of furniture, design of bedsteads, simhasana, crowns, and then about palanquins, palkis, with which ancient people were traveling from place to place, how it should be done, law courts, and art gallery. There were art galleries in this country, which of course in the Sanskrit dramas it is described as Chitrashala, but it is one sentence that Sri Harsha went to Chitrashala in Staneshwar to see something like that. But was there really Chitrashalas? There is no evidence. Like in Egypt, they have the pyramids and those things. We don't have in this country, unfortunately. We have only the Harappan ruins for the towns. We don't have anything else. But this book says how the Chitrashala should be constructed, and one can work out based on it how the studios, art studios were there. And similarly, a theatre. It's a drama theatre. That is the cover page which I have for my book. I will come to it, how it should be constructed and all that. Now, generally in all Vastu, the books which are available, there is a Vastu Purusha who is supposed to be a story that a demon fell on earth and he fell face down and all those mythological. Here there is nothing of that kind. It only says it is the reflection of sun as a square diagram, and that is Vastu Purusha. So, sun when he is in the Mesha month, then the Vastu Purusha will be facing west, that is the other way kind of thing, and it keeps on a square like this, a 3 by 3 square. There is nothing else. There is some information which is given. I will not go into those further details. And the reason for this text is not that Brahma said this or that said, nothing of that kind. There was a flood in the beginning. That is the first flood, and people were wondering what to do because there was no protection for them. At that time, there was Narada who appeared and told the people how they can construct this. There is a story there, of course, but it's not any mythological kind of thing. It's a very realistic possibility of that. This is the initial introduction. It also uses the square diagrams like the 9 by 9 up to 22 by 22. And it clearly says these diagrams, the names are given for this. It is like a coordinate diagram. It is a Cartesian system. The center is Brahma, what we would call in a x, y axis, the central point is origin. With reference to x and y, I put a coordinate, I put a point in engineering. Precisely that is what is done here. When it says in Ballata, you put the Yagashala in a temple, it says with reference to the central part, you have to locate it and go and do something there. And this is repeated. Everywhere is a square, square, square. Even though you have a rectangle side, you construct different squares. That is all mentioned, and that the Sthapati uses his intelligence to do it. It is like telling you have an arbitrary diagram, how many squares of 4 by 4 you can fit in there. It is an optimization problem. Mathematics, you people would have done such things. Here also similar things are done, but they are done intuitively by practice. And then next comes the site selection. I have listed the chapters here, the pathas, 5, 6, 7. Bhavana Yogya Bhumi Swarupam, that is the title. You can easily understand that. What is the kind of land that has to be developed? This is land development, land acquisition, settlement, habitat development, layout development is the first thing before you build anything. So, it says there are 3 kinds of lands. One is Siddha, second is Asiddha, the third one is Sadhya. Siddha is, he gives his own definitions. Siddha is going to be the places which is ready for further construction. That is going to be Siddha are those that lie close to a hermitage, a mountain or a river, because you need water resources. So if you have a river, that site is ready for some construction. If there is a mountain, you have protection and water comes from the mountain, you can develop a pond. So water resources is the first foremost principle for this. Now Asiddha is fields cultivated for agriculture. Agricultural land cannot be taken for Bhavana Yogya, for building construction, except when the king orders and so on and so forth, all that happens. This is very similar to even in the Kautilya's Arthashastra. There also he says agricultural land should not be developed because that is economy gets affected and food production gets affected. Sadhya are possible things which are going to be land which are undulating due to river flow. River somewhere there, it is not flat, but you can develop it further by filling up, and it's a possible. This is how it develops. Then Gramasima Lakshanam, that is the boundary, Gramasthala Samikaranam, that is leveling, marking of the village boundary. And once you mark, there are zoning. There are always three zones, he says, Daiva, Rajna and Manusha. Daiva means it is divine, maybe for some special purposes. Rajna is for the governance. It is not necessarily just for the king. It is for all administrative purposes. And Manusha is for the human activities. It may be trade, it may be labor, or it may be officials, it may be other purposes. So this is a three-way zoning. This three-way zoning I am showing because in the people, some of you may be knowing how the Harappan cities or the Indus Valley cities were developed. They are in three levels. There is a citadel, there is a middle town, and a lower town. The citadel is where all the controlling things, the administration and maybe some religious things were there, we have no idea. Then the middle level is where the officials and the Rajakiya. Now, Rajna doesn't mean the emperor or the king. All those were there, and the Manusha were the others. So whether there is a connection between this text and the Harappan cities is something which is yet to be investigated in detail. Maybe some of the youngsters who may be interested, they may take it up. And here again, of course, it goes into grids and all those details. And then roads and water resources. This is the fifth section in my book, the chapters 8, 9 and 10. The Marga Lakshanam roads, then Jalashaya Tataka Lakshanam, reservoirs and ponds. Unless these are done, you can't have a city or even a village. That is the understanding. Then the Pranali Setu Nirmana, because it is needed for both agriculture as well as for people for water resources and water supply. And this is where the engineering issues come up. And he says, I'll just read one or two sentences. Pranali Setu Nirmana Kramam Vyakyasyama Ityaha Naradaha. Pranali Setu Nirmane Tad Dardya Janakam. That is the one which gives strength to it. Chirastitu Hetu Bhumi Lambanam. In one word, the whole foundation is covered. In English, you have to say, you need a foundation which is deep enough and which is going to be vertical, which is stable, and which is durable for a long time. All that is covered in this one word. Then Salilam, Saikatam, Pashanam, Iti Chaturvidam, he says. This is one. Salilam is the water flow, is the speed of the water flow. Saikatam is the sand which is there. Pashanam is the stone or the gravel. Mritika is the soil which is there. These are the things which are important for giving you the strength and durability for the Anikat or the Pranali Setu is what he says. And he discusses it in greater detail, how it has to be done. The lack of time, it will take too much of time to cover all of this because it is too much of engineering is involved. And the whole thing is covered in this much. And the important things, Uru Jala Drida Kalpanopetam, he says, water has to be coming up and it should be covered with strong things. And this is for what? This is Shalyadaye Salila Punji Karanaya. After you build the dam, you need a sluice gate, you need an enclosure where water is taken out for Shali. Shali is going to be paddy. For cultivation of paddy, you have to take it out. That's a sluice. And you have to do that. And how it has to be done? It is Ayashtrankala Lambaram. There is a gate which is pulled with Ayashtrankala, with a chain, iron chain, it has to be there. And he also says, Niravakashe Drida Palaka Sanyojanam. There should be no opening at the bottom because there should be no seepage. There should be no leakage. Niravakasha, there should be no opening. It should be such well, bound. That is how he discusses. Then, all around Kshudrangana Kudya Kalpanam, you have to construct a small pit kind of thing. I will show you a photo of that. Then on the top of the Setu, you have to have Hasta Kudyakam, For what? Sapashana Sudadi Dridikritam. Sudha is mortar, lime mortar. So it used stone and lime mortar for strengthen it. Pranipata Bhiti Rahitam. So that people don't fall into the water. So it goes to such detail of how the parapet should be built, how people should be going on that. And there has to be pranali at the bottom, water can still be flowing. So he says how it has to be constructed, how it has to be dried up in one season. Even now that is how it is done. They do the primary work and there is a deviation for the water flow. And they take it out in the summer, they do finish the construction. And finally, after everything is over, they allow the water to flow back through the openings in a bridge or in a dam. This is the Pranali Setu. And you would have seen this in the villages. Even now there are many. And this has been actually the sole of this country, is the water resources. And this was understood by the engineers, the real engineers. They were the British people who came in the 19th century, and Sankey, Sankey tank is here in Bangalore. He was originally in Madras. Mysore Maharaja took him to Bangalore to develop the things in Bangalore. And what he says, in the province of which he had been one time attached to Mysore, there are 37,000 of those reservoirs, largest of which had surface of 14 square miles. The Madras Presidency, there are about 42,000 such. Imagine now, in Bangalore how many we had and how many are remaining this. And all this were done by this kind of work. And many of these are still remaining. And this is the Kshudra Kudya, he said, where water has to be taken out for the paddy cultivation. The oldest of that we know is the Kallanai river near Trichy, which has been repaired and you can't see that right now. Now, next comes the building types. The building types is the Ayadi Pramana Lakshana. Aya means the width. Now, I have to say the following. If you see the modern I mean later than these books, Vastu books, they say there is a formula which is given for the Ayadi Pramana, which says Ayadi Shadvarga, Aya, Vyaya, Riksha, Yoni. There is some kind of, if the nakshatra you divided by 27, you add the Vara, you get some number, it has to be of this width. Nothing of that kind in this book. No such thumb ruler, no such, I don't know whether it is superstition or whatever, there is nothing of that kind. In fact, the word Vara doesn't appear at all here. Vara was unknown to this book, and that's a very important property to date our culture and our Sanskrit texts. Now, this is what modern engineers would call a building typology. Depending on whether it's a 30-40 site or a 60-40 site, whether it is a bungalow site, how do you do these things? And he gives the different names: Griha, Geha, Veshma, Sadma, Agara, Bhavana, Harmya, and Prasada. These are the names. Now, if you ask a Sanskrit scholar, he would say, all these are houses, buildings. That's utterly wrong. These are technical words. So, as an engineering thing, you would say an apartment is different, a bungalow is different, a studio apartment is different, a duplex is different. It's the same thing here. And these are all Vedic words. Griha, Geha, Veshma, Sadma, Agara, they all appear in the Rig Veda actually. Bhavana doesn't, but Harmya and Prasada are also Vedic words. So this is a very ancient system which were there, and he gives how much sutra, that is the width they have to have. I will not go into these technical details, but it is quite quantitative. And these measures are given, you remember the original zonal classification, Daiva, Kshatra and Manava. So the three zones in a city, there, depending on these buildings have to be constructed. It's a zonal classification. Even today, there is a town planning authority where the zones have to be there, but in Bangalore nobody follows it. That is another matter. And here again, for Grama, he gives the There are village planning, Dashavida Grama Lakshanam. There are 10 kinds of gramas. Not going to all the details. And these gramas, there is a theory behind the grama. It is not simply like Manasara or Maimata, simply gives the names of all the grama and this and that, nothing of that kind. The habitat settlement is always, there is a theory, developed around what are called pratolis. Pratoli, if you see the modern Sanskrit text, they would say Pratoli is a road. Here, Pratoli is not a road in ancient Sanskrit text. Even in Ramayana, Pratoli is not a road. It may be connected to a road, but it is not a road. Pratoli is something like a gateway. For example, I have shown two gateways. This is the gateway of the Alampur temple. And this is the gateway still used near Madhugiri in Karnataka. It's your town or maybe nearby. Okay, very good. It's called Gundagal. I sent one of my friends to search for this and take a photograph. Reason is this. He says the grama and the nagara have to be developed around pratolis. Pratolis, he will say, put 4 pratolis, keep 12 pratolis, and on either side of the pratoli says the 2 garutka or the wings, where the traders can come on some particular days from other places, and they will keep their wares for trading. Even now in our villages, this is used, sante. They go on a particular day and then put their things near. They used to be pratolis in olden days. And pratoli is defined very well in Samarangana Sutradhara. He says it has to be like a suranga, and there should be facility for people to sit inside. Like on either side, even temples we have. When we enter a temple, on either side you will see high thing. That used to be with the original pratoli. But today we are taken over by the gopura, which is above the pratoli, which is a tall construction, where of course normal human beings can't go. But all people can sit on either side, and some of the big temples, all the commerce happens only on the pratolis, on the right side, on the both sides of this. In some of the Tamil Nadu temples, if you go next time, you will see that. And this is the design which he gives it for these pratolis. And pratolis are very important. It comes up in Murchakatika, in Padataditika also. These are all mentioned. Murchakatika is a very interesting Sanskrit drama where a person is taken and imprisoned in the pratoli, that is a room on the top of this. So it was actually a gateway, important gateway. And it also says how the marking has to be done for Gramasthala Samikaranam. Suppose you take a grama, how do you mark a grama? There's great details are given. A very interesting thing is, Denus Charayatva Gaja Turaga Charanenacha Sima Lakshma Chatodya. So you have to mark the boundary. How? First you have to allow cows to travel, which we do sometimes. If you are not in an apartment but you own a site, when you do this site, you will ask, first bring a cow and let the cow go there for 2 or 3 days, and then you can start doing it. Then Gaja Turaga Charanena. You have to take an elephant so that people know this is the kind of thing. And Chatodya, you have to mark the boundaries like that. And this has been in inscription in Tamil Nadu, where the elephant was taken around a particular village to mark the boundaries. This inscription is available during the Chola period in 11th century. This is a very common thing of taking an elephant around. Now, among the gramas, there is also one grama called the Sankirna grama. Sankirna grama is, it will not have any social classification. Generally, as I said, there are 3 classifications. And among the Manusha, there can be the Brahminical people or the priestly people in one side, Kshatriyas in the other side, the Vaishyas or the commerce people on the other side, laborers on the other side. And all these gramas, the different names are given. There are also others. There are fishermen. If there are fishermen in a particular grama, it is given a different name because it is in a coast or something of that kind. And where they have to be located, strict zoning of these things are there. But in the Sankirana grama, there is nothing of that kind. Sankirana grama is a mixed grama, and this was proposed by one Ushinara. Ushinara is one of the important persons whose name comes 11 times. And Ushinara is the name of a country, is a Vedic country. I'll show you a map towards the end if I have time for that. And these are some of the notes which I have given. If people are interested, you will have to go through the book itself. The size of a village, as we have calculated, is about 50 to 100 hectares. This is the size of a village even now, of this size only. So this is all pretty realistic. And the two engineering things, both in the cities and the villages, is the Pratoli and the Avakwiti. Avakwiti is a very interesting thing. None of the other Shilpa texts mentions about it. Avakwiti is a lower level road. So there is because there are three levels in the Samikarana, the highest level, middle level and the lower level. That is what it says, the surveying has to be done. In the lower level, maybe due to ceremonial reasons or due to topography, they are called the Avakvitis. Not all villages and towns will have Avakvitis, but some of them. This is where there is a similarity with the Harappan cities. The Dholavira has a lower town. All Harappan cities have a citadel, a middle town and a lower town. Lothal has also a lower town. Whether there is any similarity, this has to be studied yet. Now when you come to the town planning, there are, it's a long one, there are about 14 types of towns which are cities are given. I will show only one Patana. How into details he has gone. There has to be, the measurements are given. This is how they may be placed. It's an octal plan. And they are like boroughs, or they are going to be like extensions. The central place there will be palace, but these 8 corners and how the suburbs, the first suburb, all the temples are put up. Second suburb, Brahmins with courtyards and enclosures. Third for painters, florists, musical instruments. Like this he gives the definition. And how many pratolis they have to have, what should be the connection. They should all be interconnected. They are not separated out. And whether there should be a moat outside or not, whether there should be a gate, all those details are given. And this is how the names are given. Nigama Nagaram. Nigama is for commerce. Then Karmuka Nagaram, which is bent like a bow because of the coastal region. Similarly, Swastika Nagaram, Ashtamukha Nagaram, Bhupala Nagaram is where the soldiers are in large numbers, or the administrators are there. And Srinagaram, this is how the names are given for this. And the important thing is all practical. Madhyastha Drida Setu Bandhanikam. If there is any water which comes inside the city, you have to have a crossing method. It is not a flyover, but it has to be a setu. And then Navika Vatarana Dravya Stapana Yogya Kutavalikam. In one sentence, it covers the harbor and the port. And it has to be so strong because Nana Desha Gata. From other towns it is coming. They have to remove their thing, and it has to be stored, and it has to be stored in a Rajakiya Bhavane. It has to be a government thing because they have to collect the tax. So all those details in one word like a sutra, he keeps on covering. And in such a town, you have to have a Nitishala, and you have to have a Abhyasa Kutaka, and you have to have a Nataka Kalpana Sthala. So Nitishala, because there are going to be disputes. Then Abhyasa Kutaka, there is an exercise place, like a gymnasium you need. And Nataka Kalpana, because foreigners are there and you need some entertainment and all that is taken care of. But not just that. You need a Avalokana Kutakam, you need an observation tower also. And the observation tower, how it has to be, this is a dilapidated tower I am showing, but this also has to be there in such places. Without this, the town is not complete. Next it goes to fortification. There is the Durgas, very well discussed how there has to be surangas, there has to be, you know, false catches. That means if an elephant is coming, there is going to be a net in the moat which will be raised so that the elephants get disturbed and goes out. All those things are also discussed, are described in this. Now I think I'll quickly complete the remaining thing. I'll take another 10-15 minutes. Then comes the dwelling. Now only you are ready to have the human beings as habitat develop. The first thing is about Grama Nagara Viti Praman, the roads. What should be the size of the roads? Viti is not just the road, it is the layout also. Viti, today we use it as a road. But when I say, what is your address, such and such a street, it is not an empty street. It is also means the buildings which are on the two sides. That is also that is a row. So it is used in that sense. Viti in older Sanskrit meant a row. And in that sense it is used. So the first, these street layouts have to be developed, which is going to be carved streets, and it is based on, marked on the geometry, that is ayama kramam, suited to the space. Those who are versed in this standard should mark front offset of the buildings in proportion to that width. So depending on the width, the offset of the building has to be marked, the layout has to be marked. That means something like a footpath also. So the offset is a very important thing. Even today it is there in the regulations, but it is not followed. And how many sutras it has to have, and also about the lower level layouts. There is the avak viti, what should be done in the lower level if there are zones. Those things are also given. And the chariot gateways are Ratha Pratholi. Now Ratha Pratholi is the gateway through which the chariot can come out. Some of you would have, I'm sure all of you would have seen the Dasara procession, Mysore, when the elephant and those things come out of the Brahmapura, that thing, the main gate. That gate is actually a Pratholi. In the ancient things it is a Pratholi, now it may be an arch and other things. And there will be soldiers who are standing on both sides. There are going to be rooms for them to standing. There will be guns and other things are also kept there. And that is all covered in a Pratholi, And that is the main avenues, royal gateways, that is a Raja Pratholi, royal streets, highways, that is a Desha Viti. So the three kinds of Vitis are there. Grama Viti, Nagara Viti and Desha Viti. Desha Viti is going to be from one town to the another town. It is a highway, what you may call. They are broader and their details are given. And city dwellings, next comes Grama Graham, then Nagara Sadhana Praman. Both for villages, and these are given. The Nagara Sadhana is more or less a bigger thing than the Grama, but Grama is also equally important. Their dimensions are given. I will just read one little bit. A veranda is planned of 2 sutra. Halls will be twice that, that is 4 sutras. Courtyards, chatura, will be half of that measure. Minor rooms will be of 1 sutra naram. Half of that or more is the naram for the central part, Brahma Bhaga. This is very typical of our many village houses even now. The central open is a courtyard where you can't do anything. You can have only a tulsi plant or so. On other sides, the things are built. That is what is described here. The city dwellings are also of the same kind. Then mansions are given, and how they should be, say, architectural details. They have to be always symmetric. They contain a reception hall, marriage halls, and for halls symmetrically opposite. Pratimukha Shala. That is, you have one hall here, you have another hall as you enter. They are going to be 2 opposite things, kind of thing. And these are given in such detail. In the case of a mansion, you have to have a Chuli Hermia. Chuli Hermia is a turret on the top. Also in the framework, Panjara of the king's palace, regular wall, pillars and windows placed opposite each other to be of the same size. And he also gives the doshas. If they are unsymmetric, what is the dosha? If it is inclined, what happens? And so many things which have to be avoided. I am showing this because these are the ones descriptions which you get in Sanskrit dramas, particularly the social dramas of the Padataditaka and the Chaturbana. Chaturbana discusses the Chuli Harmya. In one of the plays it has a Chuli Harmya, that means on the top it's a penthouse. On the top of the building you have another small hall where people can sit and chat and kind of thing. And next comes the palace complex, because apart from the buildings, you have to have the palaces. And this is where, of course, for almost all of the drawings can be constructed, but I got this one constructed using an AutoCAD. I gave the dimension, one of my persons created a drawing of this. Details are given in the book itself, it is discussed. This is a town. Is the capital city. This is Ashtabhuja Nagara. Imagine it's Ashtabhuja Nagara. The center is palace. This palace is zoomed to this size. This is what I am showing here. The city front is here. That may be another 2 kilometers away. So imagine that it's far away. There is a moat also here. But this is the palace. The palace complex, what are the important elements? You have to have walls, and it has have 12 doors, entries. 12, or some people say 15, whatever it is, about 12 doors. First, once you enter, on either side, there is going to be a 50-pillared hall. Hall with 50 pillars. There is something like in a temple you would see in Tamil Nadu temples as we enter. Somebody would say it is meant for, in the olden times, a chatra, for people to come and sleep and so. It's a palace complex. It is not for that. It is for storage, for official purposes. Then comes a 20-pillared hall. Then comes other things here. Then there is a 10-pillared hall. This is a visitors hall. The Samantas and the other kings who come, they have to wait here. And the details are given. How many steps have to be there, and how many pillars have to be here, and where they will be seating. Arrangements are done on both the sides. And these two places are very important. This is called the Adhorana. For the Adhorana of the king, one place is for the elephant, Pattadane. The other one is for the Pattadu Kudure, that is the crown, a horse or so, which of course the king will not sit on that. It is only for puja purposes. And these two have to be every day brought here, so that the king, when he sits here in the central part, and this is a 3-level thing, it is a elevation like that. First he sees the horse and the elephant, and there will be some kind of puja done, and they will be taken away on this side. The dimensions are given for this, how much it should be, how it should be, and where the Ganta hall should be there, where the beat, and where the soldiers are sitting and all that. And all this is not flat roof. It discusses an inclined roof only, mostly Kutakaram, that means inclined kind of thing. And this is where the king sits, this is the Simhasana. I will come to a few other details. This is a private apartment for only the king. The king, if maybe he has to take rest, he will go. It is not, the Rani is not here. It is only for him, maybe to take rest or to escape in kind of case of something. There are other details also there. Suddenly he can go away to this place, it says, and it should be covered by 2 rows and so many things. And on this side is treasury. 3-layered cover has to be given for that. On this side is the armory. Again a 3-layered cover has to be given for that. And there is going to be a mantapa and a marriage hall on this here, which is again a higher level. All these lines refer to, because I have drawn only the plan. And the Queen's complex is here. Queen's complex is covered by 5 layers, and the details are given for the Queen complex, how it should be, what is the kind of garden, and what is the kind of road. If king has to go there, how he goes. These are details which comes in the drama of Basa. Basa's drama has the Chatushala and those things, and this fits into that, the garden and those things. And his king, the ministers and those people are here, slightly outside, but they are within the king's control only like that. I'm just showing you how much detail they have gone into, and the moats and how the layered things, the ramparts have two walls, two roads, and they are at a height, so the elephant and the horse can go on this, they can go up to the top also. Those details are given. Now, interesting thing about architecture, they are always interested in beauty, beautifying and all that. There's a full chapter is devoted to the palace door. How the palace door should be there for the king with gold leaf or silver leaf. Mysore Palace has gold leaf and silver, both are there, you can go and see that. It is more or less on similar lines. And he gives all the details, but it is actually carpenter's work. It is, he gives the daro, how it should be selected on that. This is all the cover. On the top is Lakshmi, the Gajalakshmi. There can also on the top, animals can be represented. Other animals like boar and rhinoceros, they can also be represented, horses. And always there have to be swan or some such here. Then there have to be flowers. It talks about Mallika and all that. Then other kinds of flowers. And then lotus. Lotus is a very important thing. Hamsa and lotus you can't avoid. Lakshmi also you cannot avoid. Otherwise it is all given to the details. And the technical details of the doors are also given. I cannot go into those details. If you see some of the old buildings, it's a huge door. You have to push it. Slowly it will make sound also. There will be some iron rod for that. There will be a stopper on the top. You can't be pushed to the... Those details are also given. So, the palace, the king's court, so to say, how are they going to sit? There are going to be the Samantas who will be sitting around. He says, Arka Panjaram Bauma Bala Veshit Vatayana Kalpana Patapanktikam, and then Vitana Jala. In 4 or 5 words, he completes everything. Arka Panjaram is a sun lantern. You would have seen sun lanterns in ancient times. In British type of buildings you might have seen. For light to enter, at the top they would put, nowadays they put sometimes a glazed tile, a transparent tile. But Arka Panjara was very common. It's called a sun lantern. In Western countries, they do use this. It's a huge kind of thing through which light will enter. You can have some light there. And then Bauma Vala Vejita Vatayana Kalpana. That is what I have shown here. It is a pankha which will be operated at the bhumi. Bauma, he will be sitting. It's a Vala Vejana. You have a Vala, it's a tile. And you move the tile and it keeps on doing the Vatayana Kalpanam. Then Vitana Jala, then you have a jewelry kind of trellis windows so that air and others come and all that. And this has continued up to this day. And this is actually a painting by a Britisher for which I have shown the photograph, how they were doing it. And this is very important. Otherwise, they could not have had palaces and these kinds of things. Now, a little bit of engineering. I'm coming to slowly to the end, I think. The foundation. Without foundation, you can't do anything. So, I discuss the foundation. This is where this is almost modern. There is, in Indian standards, what is called an importance factor. You don't put the same foundation depth. What you do for a house to a tower, what you do to a tower to a bridge, what you do to a bridge to a nuclear power plant. Because their importance increases, you spend more money, you take their safety more seriously. That is what is called classification. He classifies all constructions of that day into 6 or 7 types. This is the importance factor. You can see what he does. Uttamottama Vastu, most superior, then Uttama Vastu, then Madhyamottama Vastu, Madhya Vastu, then elephant and horse stables and interior rooms are inferior structures. They are Adhama Vastu. So you have only basement, which is shorter. You only spend less money on this. Village houses, the most inferior, Adhama Adhama Vastu. For such structures, 2 to 5 sutras are sufficient. Others are Kshudra Vastu, like a compound wall. The compound wall, nobody puts even a good foundation even now. They simply say, or it is going to be just a hedge. So you just raise some trees there and leave it like that as a boundary. So Kshudra Vastu, this is sufficient for basement. And the ground has to be always, for the other kinds of things, there, for important things, layers of bricks in lime concrete, Sudha, Chikkana, Keshti, Jalam, has to be put at the bottom. Even now they do it for the foundation. The ground is strengthened by elephant ramas. They are called the Gajapadaka. Gajapadaka is the foot which looks like the elephant foot. It is not, they would bring elephants into it, they might have done, but that is not the meaning. It is the Gajapadaka they have to do, ramming. In modern engineering, they are called sheep foot padaka. The western kind of thing, sheep foot rollers, they say. It's again a ramming which will compact the ground. Goes into great details, I will not do that. Then comes the superstructure. It's a very systematic thing. Ideology, then the selection of the site, division of the site, layouts, classification, then comes the houses, their typology, then the superstructure. Superstructure, of course, I am showing only the temple superstructure, but for buildings also he gives various details. Bhitti is the wall, Adhishthanam is the basement, this is the basement. Upapeetham is the in a pedestal on which you have to keep the columns. You can't keep the columns directly. So in the olden times, this applies mostly to wooden construction. If you would have seen some older buildings, even in Bangalore, they have wooden columns, and at the bottom you don't keep the column directly like that. You put one flat base, and then on that you keep it. That is the Upapeetham, and you see, this is an Upapeetham from Dholavira. This is from 2300 BC, you remember. And this is still there. If you go there, please see this. It's a beautiful Upapeta. And in our temples, of course, you have many of them, the Upapeta. And there are different designs, the columns. Always they use columns. In between mud walls or such walls were done. Then Stamba Lakshanam, how the column should be there. Variety of columns are discussed. Wooden columns were the first. Then the stone columns are also given. You can't have single stone column throughout. Wood you can have. So he gives different dimensions. You can have Ashtamukha, then Chaturmukha, one above the other you can keep it. If you see in some of our temples, there will be you think that it is a single column, it is not. There will be one column, there is a small joint, above that another column is put, above that another is kept and then taken to the top. And on the top, everything has to be level. That is a very important thing, and that is Bodhika. At the Bodhika level, here you may have some minor variation, but at the top level you can't have. Everything has to be at the same level. And that Bodhika is discussed and how it has to be done. There also you need a seating and all that. Otherwise it will get crashed. As the stone seatings are given. And this is in wood, timber. In timber you can show more details. In stone it is difficult. But all this architecture started with timber only. And then slowly it went to other building materials. And in timber you can show even the Vijika. Vijika is actually Mulangi. Mulangi, you know, it grows down and it has to be like that. So this Vijika art is that. Whereas the Bodhika is not so much that. Bodhika will be just like this. So these details are also mentioned. Then Bhavamviti, then Sandhi Karma. Sandhi Karma is joinery. How do you join? Join stone to stone, joining wood to wood, joining wood with iron or steel, because you make a big box. The box will have a iron lifting thing arrangement. It's a locking. Locking arrangement is a Mirnika, it is called. That is to lock. And those details are given. Then roofing and upper floor, then you go to the top, and that is Tiryak Darkam is the most important thing for engineering. That is the main beam. Of course, here you don't, this is one of the main beams, but in the olden times you would have a main beam. In Kannada you would call it the tole, the important wooden beam which would be kept. And above that the remaining things are done, the Sandhi Karma is done. Then beautiful thing is about the Chandrashala. Chandrashala is discussed in some of our Sanskrit texts, but unfortunately in the available books, Chandrashala is translated as a window. That is wrong. Chandrashala is something like, it's a balcony. And this text gives the details of the Chandrashala, how it should be built and how it should be there. And on the Chandrashala, here it is. Sheetalopachara dravyodbasura purva vedikam prakalpayeshu, something is there. The Chandrashala should have Sheetalopachara, cool drinks. You have to have a Vedika to keep cool drinks and other things also there. And people can stand there and observe what is happening on this street. This is the important thing for the Chandrashala. In Ujjaini, there were Chandrashalas of this. That is, the dramas explain this in detail. Now, the Shikhara Kalasham is this. This is again a joining thing. He says that this was there not only for temples. Nowadays it is for temples, but in olden times, the guilds had, the kings had also this Shikhara Kalpanam, how it should be done. Then the interior planning, I will quickly go through this. The dining hall which should be there, where people should be sitting, and how the sun rays should fall on the eating place, that is also mentioned. And then the rooms, it says, this is again like a living being with many nerve nodes. Here in a residence with many rooms, one has to accomplish an activity network. This is the sentence which is there. Like a human being has to do it. That is why it has to be there. And there are rooms meant for granary, treasury, bath, massage. Men, ladies should be constructed with east-facing orientation. Rooms for meditation, reading, teaching, conversation. All these details are also given. Then again, courtyard. Courtyard is the Chatvaram. There are two kinds of things. One is Navarangikam, and the other one is going to be the ordinary courtyard. I can take another 5 minutes. I think time is up. The law courts is what I wanted to show. This is the Nitishala. Again, a drawing can be constructed, so I got it constructed. Law courts are described in Sanskrit dramas, particularly Murchakatikam. But how they were doing? It is here, this is the king's place, this is a mandapa. Then on these sides, the prosecution people have to be sitting, the city people. On this side, the complainants, the plaintiff, and also the public can be sitting. And here is the main jury. There was the person, the Adhikarnika, who will be sitting. These are the jurors, or of the Nana Gotrebhya, who have come and who are knowledgeable about this. And all this just not like that. There has to be a kind of Sabhakriti, pavilion, Mandapakriti, Malikakriti, Anganakriti. It has to be constructed in that particular architecture. And these are the veranda halls where people may be waiting. And there has to be a vestibule. It is at a lower level they enter. And from this entry gate, it's something like a wicket gate or so. They enter here. On either side, there are officials where they can exchange notes with the pleaders. The advocates or the vakils will be sitting. The Sakshi forms are exchanged. The registration has to be done. And every time they have to go up, go up. There is a 5-level building has to be there. And the details are given. Similarly, public buildings, the Natakashala and the Chitrashala. Chitrashala, I don't have a figure. Natakashala is this. There are 3 kinds of Natakasalas. One is the Daiva, that is in the temples you can have. Other is in the Kshatra, that's in the palaces. Third one is Gandharva, is common for everyone. This is the Gandharva type, he says, and this has to be in 3 levels, 3 parts. The entry room, ground level, enclosed veranda is an auditorium, like a gallery in 3 sections and level. There's also going to be in 3 sections and 3 divisions. Separate seating for ladies, it has to be there. That he very clearly says, Yoshitam kvachit aho parshva stala kambala mukhasanikam. It has to be covered. There has to be a separate seating for them. There should be ventilation for them on the other side. There should be separate seating. This is the stage and the backstage and the rooms. And at the top, there has to be a bird emblem, so that from a distance people would know that there is a entertainment available in this place. In some of the jatras, you would see a tent kind of thing, where from a distance you know something interesting is happening there. Well, this is how it is. The windows and furniture, beautiful things. What is the simhasana, how it has to be constructed, what kind of thing. It's a dola, that's a swing, how it has to be done. Chitralankruti is a very important chapter. No time at all, because a book can be written on the Chitralankruti. The murals, how it should be done, and how on the walls it should be painted. There are 3 kinds of things. One is floor art, wall art, and roof art. Roof means here, of course, the roof level for them. And this is the floor art. This can be the wall art. This can be something like this can be a roof art kind of thing, you know. These are the murals, of course. This is the carts and palanquins. The royal throne is shown. This is historically very important, because on the royal throne, the emblems are shown. The Pallavas, Pandyas, and those emblems were shown. Then the last one is about temples. There are about 10 patas for temples. Devalaya Balikarma, Daiva Garbha Vinyasa, Garbha Graham. The theoretical issues of the Garbha Vinyasa, which is not available in other books at all, is given here. It is the germ deposit which has to be done, which is same for the kings also. In the king palace also, first there has to be a Garbha Vinyasa which was done. And in Devalaya also, it is being done. And the Devalayas, it discusses are only 3 layered. I am showing here for Srirangam, which is 7 layered. They came later. 5 layered in Tiruvannakaval, which is 5 layered, but here 3 layered. This is only going to be Daiva, Brahma, and Gandharva. Only 3 prakaras are there. Daiva is, of course, the Garbhagriha. Brahma is the central part. Gandharva is the art. That is the outer part on which all art can be discussed. And in the second row, there has to be ponds, and then Dvajastamba. That's a very important thing. One full chapter. What is the purpose of a Dvajastamba? He says, on the important time, the Devata of inside, they can come down from the Dvajastamba. So it has to be made a provision. There is a esoteric, mystical provision done for this. And he uses the word Mahamaham. That is in the Magha month, Magha Masa, Magha Nakshatra, there is going to be a special thing. That is both in Kerala and in Tamil Nadu, the Mahamaham is celebrated even to this day. So it has some South Indian connection of this. And Griha Pravesha it gives, and then Nanayana Nirmana. Well, I have put up an index of technical words. There are about 600 technical words I collected. Some of them are available in other books, not all. The date of the work belongs to about 100 BC to 400 or 500 AD. It is a layered text. Some of the older things belong to BC period. The later ones, the stone construction of the temples, we know it started only around 600 AD in Tamil Nadu. The stone construction is mentioned. So I have to say it is a layered text. It is earlier than all other known texts because there is no Vara. It is only, it's not Panchanga. It is only Chaturanga. That is in Nakshatra, Muhurta, Karana, Tithi. They are the only 4 used. There is no weekday which is used. Whereas Manasara, Mayamata, Samarangana, they all use Shubha Vara also. So this is earlier than that. There are also other things, sociological things which you can understand, but I have no time to cover this. So some of the specialities, I said Ushinara. Ushinara is a country, it's a Vedic country. Rigveda, there is Aushinara Shibi. He made a mantra in the 10th mandala. It's a connection with Ushinara and with the South India. So you can see it's a pan-Indian text. There is no classification like Nagara, Vesara, Dravida. There are no such classifications. It's a general thing which is there, and maybe out of this, the other things would have come up. The Nagara, Dravida kind of classification has come up at a later period. Community halls for multiple marriages are mentioned in this, whereas in no other text there are community halls for multiple marriages. The same place you can have mass marriage. Of course, our politicians do it nowadays. In some of the villages, it is mentioned here, And he also says there are marriages where fire is not used. So it says Taraka Matrakshara Vinyasam. So Tara Devi Matrakshara Vinyasa, some of the communities, maybe Buddhist, I don't know. There has to be facilities provided for them. That also it says. Gandharva theatre, where common people are allowed. There is no caste discrimination or anything. Anybody can come. So classification structures, I already said. The other specialities I have mentioned about it. There is a very important thing, the Vaduka Stupikam. The architecture of this goes back to the town architecture. The temple architecture is a reflection of the town architecture, where on the city entry halls, there is a Vaduka Stupikam, a stupa which looks like a maiden. So it is something like this. Maybe Grama Devata concept and those things might have come at a later date. Then there are a few other things. I will not go into the details. I have already mentioned to you about the courses, corner joints, and scale of importance of structures. Treatment of a wide spectrum of technical topics, site selection, layout planning, material of construction, lime concrete, foundation, base, pillar, capital, lintel, roof, balcony, all engineering words, window, residence, palace, interior decoration, picture gallery, theatre, flag post, bonding, joinery, metal casting for bimba, swings, palanquins, touching upon almost all aspects of a cultured pan-Indian society, is unique in history of Sanskrit literature. It is not only for culture, but for Sanskrit literature also it is important. So thank you. This is my concluding remark. I need not go through this. This belongs to about 600 people. Sorry, Oh yes, I will be very happy to answer questions.
We do not have enough words to thank Professor RNI for giving us such a wonderful lecture. We do appreciate youngsters asking questions which are meaningful related to this lecture. So if anybody has any questions related to the concluded topic, they may ask very quickly. We can take a couple of questions. If anyone has any questions related to the topic.
I think you should start asking a question.
I had a question. So I had a question.
Oh yes, please, please.
So you spoke about these sutras. So generally we have heard that for every construction of every house, the measurements usually depend upon the yajamana, the owner of that house. And the measurement differs for every house. We cannot have a common measurement for every house. So is that kind of a thing discussed for town planning as well? If so, is the measurement of the king taken usually for that? That's the question I had.
True. Yeah, it was, he mentions about some for the palaces and other things. Kshatra Sutra he mentions, maybe with reference to the king they were doing it. And in some cases he says, is the Sthapati will establish a particular sutra of the particular guild, the groups.
For the
they
Daiva
will
zoning.
do it. For particularly for woodwork,
Okay.
that is the carts,
Yes.
the palanquins. It is not based on others, but the Sthapatis themselves will come out with some standard dimensions. It's
Especially for Daiva zoning, for Daiva zoning, there are three zones that you mentioned, Daiva, Kshatra and Manusha. For Daiva zoning, what kind of measurements did Sthapatis use?
It's not clear. He says Prajapati Sutra and Brahma Sutra. What is the measure of the Prajapati Sutra is not clear. So it is only the ratios which may be important. But roughly it seems one sutra is average about 6 feet, maybe about 2 meters, roughly. But the book doesn't give any special thing on that.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We have one question from a student there.
Hello. I don't think it's working.
You come to the front and talk.
After such an in-depth lecture on the way that architecture can be so complex and marvelous at the same time, I was actually just wondering what are your thoughts on the lack of detailing and simplicity in the modern architecture. Like we don't emphasize on the detailing anymore. Like architecture is just meant to serve its purpose nowadays, instead of focusing on the beauty aspects and the aesthetics that you talked about at the start of the lecture.
What is it? Jor hai. Huh. Today's architects. Yeah, in fact, the present day urban architecture, what we see, is typically not Indian, So they have to bring in some Indianness into these things. Because in any country, in any culture, for the identity of the culture, architecture is very important. So what you say is true. It has become more commercial and kind of functional. Very sad, yeah, I agree. But if the people want, if they ask for that, I think they will do that. It has to, demand has to come. Whereas here, he established a particular ideology. And that from ideology, it develops the further things, So that ideology or that demand is not coming. For example, in the naming of the apartments, it was a Windsor Manor. Where is Windsor? Where is, understand what is that, These kinds of things happen. But if the people say, no, it should not be like that, they will change it. In some places it is there, not in all.
Like, I just personally feel that the country is losing its identity, and it's quite evident in the fact that the architecture of our country is becoming more and more simpler nowadays. It shows that somewhere the country itself is losing its identity.
Yeah, identity doesn't depend only on one of this. It depends on so many other things. We are trying to establish by these kinds of talks, to bring some identity into ourselves. That we are here and asking the question indicates that there is a zeal for that. So it will come up slowly.
Thank you very much for all the questions, and I mean, how to even thank Professor RNI is beyond my limitations. He agreed, and even at this age, he has started from his home at 9 o'clock in the morning, and ever since he has come here to our department, he has been speaking, and never once did you see him take a sip of water in between the lecture. Such enthusiasm towards the subject, such enthusiasm towards teaching. So all these things, it really helps us to know that we are amidst such a wonderful person amongst us. Anyway, on behalf of Amrita Darshanam, I would like to invite our center coordinator, Dr. Manish ji, to okay, and both of us will, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Beautiful.
And I thank each and every student present here for your impeccable patience in listening to this subject. Thank you very much. You have made this lecture a wonderful success. Thank you very much. Your attendance is recorded. Thank you very much.